Alright guys, how are we doing, and welcome back to today's video. Today's video we're going to look at how you can take your text and graphics to take the form of textures. Some examples of this which I'll pop up on the screen are how you can make your text look cracked, or how you can make the text take the form of bubbles and that sort of thing. But we'll also be taking this a step further, and I'll be showing you how you can actually use animated textures to manipulate your clean text and graphics, and they'll take the form of the texture and create some nice, just simple animations for your clean graphics. All in all, it's very easy to do and follow along, and it's just a bit of a game changer really to implement that into your design process. There's a lot of usages in which this will be very good, and I'll show you that as we go through. So if you're new to the channel, please give the video a like, comment, and of course subscribe for more design content. Anyway, let's get on with today's video. Okay, so first thing we're going to want to do is open up a brand new document, and for this I'm just going to create a 920 by 1080 landscape document like so, and then I'm going to save it and just name that as my design file. So this is the file that we're going to work in and create our designs in, so just go ahead and save that. And then what we're going to want to do is create another file that's exactly the same size, and that's going to be our map file. So that's what we're going to work in to apply the textures to. So an easy way to do this is just file, save as, and save it as a new file, and then you can just go back to file, open recent, and open the one that you made previously. So now you've got two files, one called design, one called design map, or whatever you've named them, and they're both exactly the same size. Cool, so next thing we're going to want to do is just import our text or graphics depending on what you're going to be working with. I'm just going to be using some simple text just for the purposes of this video, but import any text or graphic that you want to work with today. So I'm just going to use hello as an example, and I'm just going to create some nice bold text. So now that we've got our text in place, what we're going to want to do is make sure we convert it to a smart object. So now what we're going to want to do is actually source our textures. Now you can either buy these from places like Shutterstock, or you can source some of these for free online at places like Unsplash and Pexels, and I'll make sure they're all linked below in this video so you can go and grab them pretty easily. But it's important to think what we're trying to achieve with the effects. So if you want to create something that has sort of a damaged, cracked texture, then we're going to want to look for textures that sort of resemble this, such as smashed glass or cracked paint. So for the first example, I'm going to want to create like a cracked, like smashed design. So I'm going to go onto my image sites such as Unsplash, and I'm going to type in cracked texture. Very simple, and see what we can come up with. Now there's a range of textures on here already. Lots of them have quite interesting forms, and it's about experimenting really and seeing what works with your design. So I'm going to go for one that is quite broken like so, and I'm going to download that, and I'm going to just select a range of different textures because we can sort of play around and see how it works. And then we're going to go back to our design file. So we're now in our file, and we're going to want to go to our map file, and this is where we're going to place the textures. Now if you create one file, you can actually drop in as many images as you want, and then you can go back and save it and change the images, turn them on and off, and basically test them all out without having to make loads of different files. So what we're going to want to do now is just drop in all of our textures that we just found into this one file, and then what we're going to want to do is go to the adjustments layer and add a black and white filter over the top. So we're also going to want to add a brightness and contrast adjustment layer over the top, which is going to basically allow us to up or lower the contrast and the brightness, which is going to allow the effect to be more or less intense. Cool, so let's start off with our first texture, and then what we're going to want to do is save this file, go back to our design file, and then go to filter, distort, displace, change the settings to 10 and 10, press OK, and then we're going to want to select our design map that we just created that has our images in, and once we press OK, we can see it started to take the form of these textures, adding all these cracks and stuff into the text. Very interesting, very cool. So we can now experiment with this, really play around with these, and go back into our file, turn on the other texture that we did, press save, go back into our original file, and then we can turn the displacement map off and back on again, and it will take form of the new texture that we just saved. This allows us to really play around with that design map file and test out a lot of different textures and see what really works for us. I'm going to go back to this first one because I thought it was quite interesting, and then what you can also do with the brightness and contrast layer is sort of up the brightness and play around with the contrast and those sort of things. Press save again, go back to your design file, on and off, and it will allow you to change the intensity depending on how much of a contrast there is within the image. So you can play around with this as much as you want. For example, mix it up with things such as bubbles, and we can go back to our file again, on and off. And you can see it creates this bubbly effect within our text, which is really nice and really interesting. Another quick tip for this is if you actually wanted to duplicate your texture back onto your text and overlay it and then play with the blending modes, you can make it look like the text is actually interacting with the image and with the texture. I just want to do a huge shout out for today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. For those of you who haven't heard of Skillshare before, it's an online learning platform with thousands of really good classes, perfect for if you want to learn a new skill or just deepen your knowledge. And it doesn't have to be creative, they've got loads of different classes on there for different subjects. I've recently been watching the principles and process of making logos that last with Saggy Hafiv, which was really sick because I've always wanted to dive a little bit deeper into my logo design process on how to make them a little bit more clean, a little bit more minimal, but still exciting and engaging. The platform is created specifically for learning, and they're constantly adding new and exciting classes, so you can get stuck in and see where your creativity takes you. They've also given the first 1,000 of you guys watching a free trial to the premium membership, so go and check the link below for that. Be one of the first people to grab it before they run out and get some free knowledge. But yeah, link in the description, and let's get back to today's video. Okay, so for the second part of this tutorial, we're going to want to open After Effects and then go to New Composition. Again, I'm just going to create a 1920 by 1080 document, and the duration is completely up to you. I'll just create a 10-second document like so and press OK. So now we're going to want to import our text or graphics. If you're using imported graphics, it's better if they're black or white, single color, sort of PNGs, or basically transparent. So import them as either PNGs or Illustrator files, PDFs, that sort of thing, but make sure they're sort of isolated. Clean white logos work best for this. I'm just going to create some text again that's saying hello. Make sure that's white so you guys can read it, and change that to something quite bold. Impact, why not? Why not? And I'm going to center that. So the next thing we're going to want to do is find our animated textures. Now, another good place to do this is on Pexels Video. Again, I'll link it below, but we can go on here and find things such as water texture. And this is going to give us a load of different textures that we can play with. We want something that's sort of bird's eye view, or it's got a lot of stuff going on. So like this, so you can see it's a nice flat texture, a lot of movement going on there, and a lot of shapes and form that's going to kind of work well with our text. So these are all free to use, so we can download that. But yeah, once that's downloaded, we're going to want to go back to our After Effects file. We're going to want to drop it in our video. Now we're going to want to go to our effects and presets, and we're going to want to type in threshold. So we can go down to threshold at the bottom there and drag that onto our video clip. And what that's going to do is turn it black and white. And we can actually go up here to our effects panel and kind of mess around with this to get the effect that we want, like so. I think that's pretty good. And then we can drag that to the back and actually hide that for now. And then what we're going to do next is go back up to the effects panel and search displacement map, which will be under the distort folder, and we can select that and drop that on our text. If we go to the top here, we're going to want to make sure that the displacement layer is set to our video, which is this Pexels one, and just make sure the source is selected. Now, if we press play, you can see that the edges here are sort of manipulating to the video below, and what we can do is change this to 10, change this to 10, and this will allow it to displace a little bit more, adding those sort of wavy movements into the text. The more that you up this displacement for the left and right, the more it will displace your video, like so. So it's basically just the horizontal and vertical displacement sort of settings up here. So we go back to the start and press play, we can see that this is now manipulating quite a lot with the text behind, and looking very fun and very interesting. So this is a really simple way to just add a little extra something to your logos and your text, whether you're doing this on a video or some social media assets or something like that. But adding this motion in just really emphasizes that texture, and it's very interesting. You're turning a little bit of static text here into its own sort of animated graphic, which looks very good. Again, you're going to want to experiment with this as much as possible to get very fun, interesting and creative results. Really push the boat out and test it out. Again, feel free to experiment with as many different textures as possible. What you can do is basically go back through all those textures, save them all, drop them all in here, apply the threshold, and then on this displacement layer, little drop down at the top here, you can just select each one, so you can drop them all in and then just basically scroll through them. So I'll go ahead now and grab some other textures and see how that sort of works on here. So I'm going to try a little fire texture like this. Looks quite interesting, so let's download that. So with this one, you can see that it's taking the form of the smoke and the embers and creating sort of this weird wavy fire effect on your text. Personally, I think the water one actually worked the best. Let's go back to that one, like so. And yeah, just get creative with it, play around with it as much as possible, and be interesting to see what you guys can create using these techniques. So a really good way to actually then apply this to something else is to export this as a transparent video, which you can then convert into a GIF, put it on your social media, overlay it on, I don't know, your Instagram photos, or just, yeah, export it as a transparent video and overlay it within a music video or your YouTube banner or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So that is it for today's video. Just a couple of extra ways on how you can use displacement maps, static or animated, to just add a little extra something to your text, logos, graphics, that sort of thing. Hopefully you've learned something new today and something you can take forward and implement in your next design project. If so, please drop the video a little like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what you're going to use this on. And yeah, hopefully I'll catch you again next time with a new creative tutorial. I'm going to try and be banging these out every single week, every other week, that sort of thing. So yeah, stay tuned for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you again soon with a new one. So take care, and I'll see you in a bit.